Chapter 1. The Spark and the Story, Your 2-Second Reality. Let's start with a simple question. What happens inside you in a simple, unremarkable moment of frustration? Let's say you're in a hurry. You're trying to find your keys. You check the usual spot. They're not there. You check the table, the counter, your coat pockets. Nothing. A familiar tension begins to build. Your breath gets a little shorter. Your movements become sharper, more hurried. And then a thought arrives. It doesn't knock, it just appears, fully formed, and it feels like a fact. This always happens to me. Or maybe, I'm so disorganized, I can't handle anything. In an instant, a simple search for keys has become a story about you, a story about your competence, a story that carries a sting. This moment is the birthplace of almost all of our stress. Not the lost keys, the story about the lost keys. And I want to suggest something to you. In that tiny space between the event, the missing keys, and the reaction, the frustration and the self-critical story, there is a universe. Most of us live our entire lives inside the reaction, believing the story. We think the feeling is the final word. But what if you could step back, just one step, and see the machinery at work? Let's rewind that moment. Let's slow it down to a frame by frame. Frame 1. The spark. The keys are not in the first place you look. That's all it is, a neutral fact, a spark of data. Frame 2. The signal. Your body reacts before your thinking mind does. A slight rush of adrenaline, a tightening in the shoulders. This is a signal, a biological nudge saying, pay attention, something is off plan. It's not good or bad, it's just data. Frame 3. The story. And here is where the magic and the misery happen. Your mind, which hates. Chapter 1. The Spark and the Story, Your 2-Second Reality. Let's start with a simple question. What happens inside you in a simple, unremarkable moment of frustration? Let's say you're in a hurry. You're trying to find your keys. You check the usual spot. They're not there. You check the table, the counter, your coat pockets. Nothing. A familiar tension begins to build. Your breath gets a little shorter. Your movements become sharper, more hurried. And then a thought arrives. It doesn't knock. It just appears, fully formed, and it feels like a fact. This always happens to me. Or maybe, I'm so disorganized, I can't handle anything. In an instant, a simple search for keys has become a story about you, a story about your competence, a story that carries a sting. This moment is the birthplace of almost all of our stress. Not the lost keys, the story about the lost keys. And I want to suggest something to you. In that tiny space between the event, the missing keys, and the reaction, the frustration and the self-critical story, there is a universe. Most of us live our entire lives inside the reaction, believing the story. We think the feeling is the final word. But what if you could step back, just one step, and see the machinery at work? Let's rewind that moment. Let's slow it down to a frame by frame. Frame 1. The spark. The keys are not in the first place you look. That's all it is, a neutral fact, a spark of data. Frame 2. The signal. Your body reacts before your thinking mind does. A slight rush of adrenaline, a tightening in the shoulders. This is a signal, a biological nudge saying, pay attention, something is off plan. It's not good or bad, it's just data. Frame 3. The story. And here is where the magic and the misery happen. Your mind, which hates uncertainty, leaps into action. It grabs that physical signal and that neutral fact, and it weaves them into a meaning. It creates a narrative to explain the feeling. This always happens is a story. I'm so disorganized is a story. My day is ruined is a story. These stories feel absolutely real. They feel like truth, but they are not the event. They are an interpretation of the event. They are the first draft your brain writes in a fraction of a second. Frame 4. The reaction. And now you react. Not to the missing keys, you react to the story about the missing keys. The frustration, the self-judgment, the overwhelm, it all flows from the narrative, not the spark. This loop, Spark, signal, story, reaction is the core engine of your moment-to-moment experience. It runs thousands of times a day. A colleague doesn't reply to your email. Spark, no reply. Signal, a faint, hollow feeling in the stomach. Story, they're ignoring me, they don't respect my work. Reaction, withdrawal, resentment, anxiety. You see a number on the scale you don't like. Spark, the number. Signal, a flush of heat. Story, I've failed, I have no willpower. Reaction, shame, the urge to give up on healthy habits. The engine is fast, blindingly fast. It's designed for survival. In our distant past, a rustle in the bushes needed an instant story, predator, and a powerful reaction, run, to keep us alive. But today, the predators are often unanswered emails, traffic jams, or lost keys, and the engine still runs the same ancient software, creating stories of catastrophe and personal failure out of modern inconveniences. The good news, the truly life-changing news, is this: you are not the engine. You are the one who can learn to observe the engine. That ability to see the story as a story and not as reality is the single most important skill we'll build in this book. It is the foundation of every change that follows. It's not about stopping the stories. Your brain is a meaning-making machine. It will always create narratives. It's about developing a gentle, curious awareness that lets you see the process happening. So for the rest of today, I invite you to a simple experiment. Don't try to change anything. Don't try to be positive. Just watch. The next time you feel a flash of irritation or a pinch of anxiety or a wave of discouragement, see if you can slow it down. Can you spot the spark, the simple, neutral event? Can you feel the signal, the sensation in your body? Can you hear the story, the sentence your mind instantly creates? And then, can you see the reaction that follows? You're not looking to fix it, you're learning to see the separate parts. You're meeting for the first time the incredible automatic storytelling machine that is your mind. This is the first step out of the fog. This is the moment you realize you've been living in a movie directed by your own thoughts, and you've just been given a seat in the projection booth. It might feel strange at first, awkward, but this simple act of noticing is how you begin to change everything. Because when you see the machinery, you are no longer its captive. You are its operator. And that is where our real journey begins. Chapter 2: The Silent Witness, the Power of Awareness. In our last chapter, we slowed down a moment of frustration. We watched as a simple spark, missing keys, became a signal in the body, then a story in the mind, and finally a full-blown reaction. We identified the parts of the engine: spark, signal, story, reaction. And we ended with an invitation to watch, to see if you could spot these separate parts the next time your own engine revved up. If you tried that, even once, you may have noticed something fascinating. Something different was present in that moment. A part of you was watching the frustration. A part of you was listening to the story. A part of you felt the tension in your shoulders and also knew that it was there. That part of you is what we're going to talk about now. It doesn't have a loud voice, it doesn't argue, it doesn't panic or plan, it simply notices. I call it the silent witness. Others might call it awareness or consciousness or the observing self. Think of it this way. Right now, you are aware that you are listening to my voice. You are also aware of the room you're in. You might be aware of the weight of your body in your chair, the temperature of the air. You are having these experiences, and you are also aware that you are having them. That background sense of I am here experiencing this is the silent witness. It is the part of you that reads the thought, I'm so disorganized, and for a split second can simply acknowledge, that is a thought. This is not some mystical, elevated state. It is your fundamental capacity for awareness. It's what you use when you realize you've been driving for 10 miles on autopilot and you come back to yourself. You were always there, aware of the road, but a layer of conscious noticing just clicked back on. The problem is we spend most of our lives completely identified with the other parts of the engine. When the storyteller spins a tale of catastrophe, we become the catastrophe. We are fused with the story. We believe it completely. When the reactor sends a wave of anxiety, we become the anxiety. We are tumbled by the wave. We are so close to the machinery, we mistake its noise for our entire identity. The silent witness is the one part that is not a piece of the machinery. It is the spacious awareness in which the machinery operates. It is the sky, not the weather. Let me give you a clear example. Imagine you're lying in bed at 3 a.m. Your mind is racing. The storyteller is in overdrive. What if I fail at that project tomorrow? Why did I say that in the meeting today? I'll never get ahead. I'm not good enough. For a while, you're lost in it. You are the worried person, trapped in the story. Your body is tense. Your heart might be pounding. You are fused. Then, something shifts. You might think, oh, I'm worrying again. Or you might just feel a sudden slight separation from the torrent of thoughts. In that moment, the silent witness has come online. You are no longer just the worry. You are the one aware of the worry. The thoughts necessarily haven't stopped, but now there's a space around them.
The witness doesn't fight the engine. It understands it. And from that understanding, wiser action becomes possible. So your practice for this chapter is even simpler than the last. Throughout your day, just ask one gentle question. What is aware of this? You're stuck in traffic, feeling irritation rise. What is aware of this irritation? You're reading a message that upsets you. What is aware of this feeling of upset? You're enjoying a beautiful sunset. What is aware of this beauty? Don't try to answer it with words. Just pose the question and feel for the space of awareness behind the experience. Feel the one who is noticing. You're not trying to be the silent witness. You already are it. You are just practicing the art of remembering, of turning the light of awareness back onto itself, just for a second. Each time you do this, you are strengthening the most important relationship you will ever have, your relationship with your own conscious presence. You are learning to come home to yourself. And from this quiet, steady place, everything else we will learn becomes not just a technique, but a natural expression of who you truly are. Chapter 3. The Eternal Narrator, Why Your Brain Can't Stop Talking. In the quiet space of the silent witness, we found a point of stillness, a place of just noticing. But if you lingered there for even a moment, you likely noticed something else. The quiet didn't last, did it? Almost immediately, a new thought floated in, a comment on the silence, a plan for later, a memory from yesterday, a snippet of a song. The machinery, it seems, never really stops, especially one particular part of it. We met it briefly in Chapter 1. We called it the Storyteller. If the silent witness is the vast, still sky, then the storyteller is the weather, constant, changing, and endlessly descriptive. It is the voice in your head that narrates your life from the moment you wake until the moment you drift to sleep. I'm tired. I need coffee. That person didn't smile back. Do they not like me? This traffic is unbearable. I should have said something else. It doesn't just describe, it interprets, it judges, it predicts. It weaves every spark of data, every signal from your body into a coherent and often dramatic plot. Your stomach rumbles before a meeting. The storyteller doesn't say, "My stomach is contracting." It says, "I'm so nervous. Everyone is going to see I'm anxious. I'm going to mess this up." Someone you care about is quiet. The storyteller doesn't say, "They are being quiet." It leaps to, "They're upset with me. What did I do? I must have done something wrong." This isn't a flaw. It is your brain's greatest talent and its most exhausting habit. Your brain is a meaning-making organ. It is wired for one primary task: to take in chaotic, neutral data from the world and turn it into a story that helps you survive and navigate. For our ancestors, a shadow in the tall grass had to become the story predator immediately. The cost of being wrong, thinking it was just the wind when it was a lion, was fatal. So the brain evolved to err heavily on the side of assuming threat, assuming a story, assuming a meaning.
The problem is, we no longer live in the savannah, but our brain's brilliant, threat-sensitive narrator is still running the show. It takes the modern world's ambiguous social cues, minor setbacks, and ordinary uncertainties, and it runs them through its ancient, dramatic script. The result, we often live inside a story that is far more stressful, personal, and catastrophic than the neutral reality it's trying to describe. The key to working with the storyteller is not to silence it. That would be like trying to stop your heart from beating. The goal is to change your relationship to its narration. You must learn to hear it not as the voice of truth, but as the voice of a very talented, very anxious, and sometimes very creative novelist. It is always drafting. It is always writing the first draft of reality. And first drafts are notoriously messy, biased, and full of assumptions. Think of the last time you worried intensely about an upcoming conversation, playing out every terrible outcome in your mind. The storyteller wrote a full tragedy, complete with dialogue and your own humiliation. And then, how often did the actual conversation match that script? Almost never. The real event was softer, more ambiguous, more ordinary. But for hours or days, you lived inside the stress of the fictional version. You suffered from a story, not a reality. This is the power the storyteller has when we believe it without question. So our task is to become good editors of this internal novel. It starts with recognizing its favorite genres. The storyteller has well-worn patterns, often called cognitive distortions. The catastrophe genre. If I fail this, my entire career is over. The mind-reading genre. They all think I'm incompetent. The personalization genre. It's raining. Of course it is, just for me, to ruin my day. The eternal damnation genre. I always mess things up. I'll never get it right. Hearing these not as truths, but as genres, as predictable patterns of a creative, worried mind, is the first step to freedom. When you hear a story that brings a wave of dread or shame, you can now pause. You can call upon your silent witness. And from that quiet space, you can ask the most liberating question an editor can pose to an overzealous writer. Is that necessarily true? Not is it false, but is it the only possible interpretation? Could there be another, less charged, more neutral draft? My colleague was short with me. They dislike me in my work. Is that necessarily true? Could the other draft be, my colleague was short with me. They are under immense pressure from their boss. It likely has nothing to do with me. I feel a flutter of anxiety before I speak. This means I'm going to fail. Is that necessarily true? Could the other draft be, I feel a flutter of energy in my body. This is my system mobilizing focus. It's fuel for engagement. This isn't about forced positivity. It's about factual flexibility. It's about acknowledging that the first story is just that, a first story, one possible interpretation among many. Your practice this time is to catch the storyteller in the act and to thank it. Seriously, when you notice yourself locked in a stressful narrative, say to yourself, silently, with kindness, thank you, storyteller. Thank you for trying to protect me by predicting this threat. Thank you for your dramatic effort. And then, gently, see if you can brainstorm one other possible draft. Just one. It doesn't have to be wonderfully positive. It just has to be plausibly neutral. This does two profound things. First, it separates you from the story. You are now relating to the storyteller, not being kidnapped by it. And second, it begins to retrain the brain itself. You are teaching it that its first fear-based draft is not the final word. You are introducing choice back into a process that feels automatic. You are learning that you are not the anxious novel your mind writes. You are the reader, and with time, you become the wise, compassionate editor. Chapter 4. The Body's Alphabet, Decoding Your Emotional Signal System. We've met the quiet witness. We've met the chatty storyteller. Now we turn to the part of your engine that speaks a different language entirely, a language without words, a language of sensation.
It's the tightness in your chest when an email from your boss arrives, the sinking feeling in your stomach when you realize you forgot something important, the restless energy in your legs when you're forced to sit through a pointless meeting, the warm, open feeling in your heart when someone you love smiles at you. This is the voice of the reactor. If the storyteller deals in interpretations and predictions, the reactor deals with raw, present-moment data. It is the constant physical feedback system of your entire being. Most of us were taught to think of emotions as things that happen in our heads, thoughts that make us feel a certain way. But that's half the story, and it puts the carts before the horse. Often, it happens in the opposite direction. A situation arises. In a flash, far below the level of conscious thought, your nervous system and your body make an appraisal. Is this safe? Is this a threat? Is this a potential reward? And based on that lightning-fast appraisal, your body changes. Your muscles tense or relax. Your heart rate speeds up or slows down. Hormones like cortisol or oxytocin flood your bloodstream. Then, the storyteller leaps in. It feels these bodily changes and immediately constructs a narrative to explain them. My heart is racing and my palms are sweaty. I must be terrified. My chest feels tight and hot. I am so angry. I have a hollow, sinking feeling. I am filled with sadness. See the sequence. Sensation first, story second. But the problem is, we're so fused with the storyteller's instant analysis that we skip the sensation entirely. We jump straight to the label, I am angry, and all the thoughts and actions that come with that label. But what if the sensation itself is just a signal, not a command? Think of your reactor not as a dictator, but as a dedicated, somewhat old-fashioned communications officer. It sends urgent telegrams to your conscious mind using the only code it knows, the language of the body. A knot in the stomach.
The tragedy is that we've lost the code book. We receive the telegram, the knot in the stomach, and we let the storyteller translate it incorrectly. It reads, danger, failure, shame, when the original message might have just been unknown outcome, high alert. We treat the signal as if it is the final, unquestionable truth about our reality, rather than a piece of information to be considered. So our work is to reclaim the code book, to learn the basic alphabet of our body's signals. This isn't about becoming a medical expert. It's about becoming a curious explorer of your own inner landscape. The next time a strong emotion arises, let's use anxiety as our map. I invite you to do something radically different. Don't follow the storyteller's frantic narrative. I can't handle this. What if I fail? Everything is going wrong. Instead, pause. Drop your attention down out of your thinking mind and into your physical body. Ask with gentle curiosity, where do I feel this in my body? Don't look for the psychological why yet. Just locate the physical where. Is it a fluttering, vibrating feeling in the center of your chest? Is it a constriction, like a band around your ribs? Is it a buzzing energy in your arms and legs? Is it a cold, hollow feeling in your belly? Just notice, without judgment, you are listening to the telegram, not interpreting it. Now, see if you can describe the sensation with simple, neutral, physical words, not emotional labels. Not, I feel anxious, but I feel a fluttering, vibrating energy in my chest. Not, I am so angry, but I feel a dense, hot pressure behind my sternum. Not, I am heartbroken, but I feel a deep, aching heaviness in the center of my chest. This simple act of moving from an emotional label to a sensory description is one of the most powerful psychological moves you can learn. It does three things instantly. First, it creates a space. Between you and the raw emotion, there is now the act of observation. The witness is back online. Second, it demystifies the feeling. The terrifying, overwhelming anxiety becomes a specific, located set of physical sensations. Sensations that, like all things, will crest, change, and eventually subside. And third, it often reveals the signal's true message. That vibrating energy labeled anxiety might actually be intense anticipation. That hot pressure labeled anger might be a sense of a boundary being crossed. When you learn to listen to the reactor's direct language, you often find the storyteller was translating poorly, using outdated, dramatic dictionaries. Your practice for this chapter is one of mindful listening. Once a day, when any noticeable emotion arises, frustration, joy, impatience, contentment, pause. Place a hand gently on the part of your body where you feel the sensation most strongly. Breathe into that space for just 2 breaths. Ask silently, what is this sensation's true texture? Is it hot, cold, tight, loose, vibrating, still, sharp, dull? You are not trying to change it. You are simply listening to a direct report from the deepest, most honest part of your being, the part that speaks in the pure language of sensation. You are beginning a conversation with your reactor, not to shut it down, but to understand what it's trying to tell you. Because when you can decode the signals, you no longer have to fear the alarms. You can respond to the message instead of reacting to the noise. Chapter 5, The Storyteller's Trap, From Helper to Inner Critic. We've learned to listen to the body's quiet alphabet. We've learned to see the stories as stories. But there is one particular story that deserves its own chapter. It is the most persistent, personal, and convincing narrative of all. It is the story of you, written by a harsh and fearful editor. We all know this voice. It's the voice that doesn't just say, that presentation could have gone better. It says, you are a fraud and everyone saw it. It doesn't just say, making a mistake is part of learning. It says, you always mess things up, you'll never get it right. This is the inner critic, and it is the storyteller's most destructive genre. To understand it and to finally loosen its grip, we must ask a surprising question. What is this voice actually for? If we believe it's simply there to torment us, we will wage a futile war against it. But if we see it as a misguided protector, we can change our entire relationship with it. Think back. For a child, the world is full of real dangers. Disapproval from a caregiver, rejection from the group, failure at a task. These feel like threats to survival. So a part of the young mind develops a strategy. It internalizes the rules, the expectations, the potential for criticism. It learns to scold itself before anyone else can. It tries to predict danger and correct behavior in advance through self-criticism. Don't be too loud or you'll be a nuisance. Don't try that or you'll fail and be embarrassed. Don't stand out or you'll be rejected. This is the inner critic's original, well-intentioned job, to keep you safe, small, and within the lines of what it believes will ensure your belonging and survival. The tragedy is that this protective mechanism never got the memo that you grew up. It's still operating from the rulebook of a child in the complex world of an adult. It mistakes social risk for mortal danger. It sees the possibility of a setback as a catastrophic threat. And so it narrates your life from a place of constant, hyper-vigilant fear. Its primary tools are exaggeration, personalization, and absolutism. It takes a specific event, like I stumbled over my words, and makes it universal. I am inarticulate. It takes a neutral outcome, they hired someone else, and makes it personal. I am unworthy. It takes a temporary state, I feel unsure, and makes it permanent. I will always be lost. When you believe this voice, you are living inside a story of fundamental inadequacy. Every spark becomes proof of your failure. Every signal becomes a warning siren. Your entire engine is hijacked by this ancient, fear-based narrator. So, how do we disarm this protector who has become a tyrant? Not by fighting it. Arguing with the inner critic is like arguing with a terrified guard dog. It just barks louder. You're not good enough. Yes, I am. Prove it. The battle is the trap. The way out is through a radical shift from fusion to dialogue. Your first step is to give it a name, not a dramatic, evil name, but a simple, almost bureaucratic one. The manager, the commentator, the safety officer. My personal favorite is the editor, because its job is to constantly edit your life, but it's using a rulebook from 1992. This simple act of naming creates instant separation.
You are not the criticism. You are the one hearing the criticism from a part of you called the editor. Now, from the seat of the witness, you can begin a respectful, curious conversation with this anxious part. When you hear that familiar, harsh voice, you don't have to believe it or fight it. You can simply acknowledge it. Ah, there's the editor. It's doing its job. It's trying to protect me from failure. Then you can thank it. This is not sarcasm. This is genuine recognition of its misguided intent. Thank you for trying to keep me safe. Thank you for wanting me to succeed and belong. I hear you. And then, with compassion, you can update it. But the rule you're using, that one mistake means total failure, is an old one. It's not serving me anymore. I am an adult now. I can handle feedback. I can learn from missteps. I choose a new rule. Growth requires risk, and imperfection is part of being human. This simple process of name, thank, update is one of the most powerful psychological moves you can learn. It does 3 things instantly. First, it creates a space. Between you and the raw emotion, there is now the act of observation. The witness is back online. Second, it demystifies the feeling. The terrifying, overwhelming anxiety becomes a specific, located set of physical sensations. Sensations that, like all things, will crest, change, and eventually subside. And third, it often reveals the signal's true message. That vibrating energy labeled anxiety might actually be intense anticipation. That hot pressure labeled anger might be a sense of a boundary being crossed. When you learn to listen to the reactor's direct language, you often find the storyteller was translating poorly, using outdated, dramatic dictionaries. Your practice this week is one of mindful listening. Once a day, when any noticeable emotion arises, frustration, joy, impatience, contentment, pause. Place a hand gently on the part of your body where you feel the sensation most strongly. Breathe into that space for just 2 breaths. Ask silently, what is this sensation's true texture? Is it hot, cold, tight, loose, vibrating, still, sharp, dull? You are not trying to change it. You are simply listening to a direct report from the deepest, most honest part of your being, the part that speaks in the pure language of sensation. You are beginning a conversation with your reactor, not to shut it down, but to understand what it's trying to tell you. Because when you can decode the signals, you no longer have to fear the alarms. You can respond to the message instead of reacting to the noise. Chapter 5, The Storyteller's Trap, From Helper to Inner Critic. We've learned to listen to the body's quiet alphabet. We've learned to see the stories as stories. But there is one particular story that deserves its own.
We call these experiences by different names: a panic attack, a blind rage, a paralyzing fear. In these moments, it feels like you've been kidnapped by your own biology. The witness seems a million miles away. The storyteller is screaming. You are pure, overwhelming reaction. To navigate these storms, we must understand what is actually happening under the hood. We must move from seeing this as a personal failing to seeing it as a systemic event, the activation of your most ancient survival programming. Deep in your brain, far below the level of conscious thought, sits an almond-shaped cluster of neurons called the amygdala. Think of it as your body's smoke detector. Its job is simple and vital: to scan every millisecond of your experience for any sign of threat. It doesn't think, it doesn't reason, it reacts. And it is connected directly to the body's alarm system, the sympathetic nervous system. When your personal smoke detector senses smoke, which could be anything from a real physical danger to a stressful email, a critical thought, or even a memory, it doesn't check to see if there's really a fire. It just pulls the alarm. And when that alarm is pulled, a cascade is unleashed. Adrenaline and cortisol flood your system. Your heart rate and blood pressure soar to pump fuel to your muscles. Your digestion shuts down to conserve energy. Your vision tunnels. Your prefrontal cortex, the seat of the witness, the rational planner, the wise director, goes partially offline. It's a luxury you can't afford in a life or death moment. This is the fight, flight, or freeze response. It is brilliant, automatic, and designed for one purpose: to get you away from a tiger. The problem, of course, is that the modern tiger is almost never a physical predator. It's a debt notice, a public speaking engagement, a conflict with a loved one, or the sheer overwhelm of a to-do list. But your amygdala doesn't know the difference. An email from your boss can trigger the same physiological cascade as a predator in the grass. Your body prepares to run or fight, and then you just sit there, in your office chair, marinating in stress hormones with nowhere to go. This is the hijack. The smoke detector is screaming fire when there's only a burnt piece of toast, but your entire system is now mobilized for a catastrophe. So, what can you do when you're in the grip of this false alarm? Fighting it, telling yourself to calm down, is like yelling at a fire alarm to be quiet. It's useless. The system is already in motion. The only way out is through the body. You must speak the language of the reactor directly to convince the smoke detector that the threat has passed. Step 1 is to anchor. When your mind is a cyclone, you must find one single physical point of stability. This is not a mental exercise, it is a physical one. Press your feet firmly into the floor. Feel the solid ground. Grab the edge of a table and feel its cold, hard surface. Wrap your arms around yourself and give a firm squeeze. You are telling your panicking system, you are here, you are grounded, you are not free-falling. Step 2 is to exhale. The hijack state is one of frantic inhalation, gasping for air for the coming fight or flight. To signal safety, you must do the opposite. Breathe out, slowly. Make your exhale twice as long as your inhale. Breathe in for a count of 4 and out for a count of 8. This directly activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the body's brake, which counteracts the alarm. Step 3 is to wait. Don't engage the storyteller's catastrophic narrative. Don't make any decisions. Don't send that angry email. Just tend to the body. Anchor and breathe. The biochemical cascade of stress hormones has a half-life. It will subside, usually within 90 seconds, if you don't refuel it with fresh panic or angry thoughts. Your practice is to create a hijack kit, a pre-planned physical response for when you feel the hijack beginning. Mine is feet, chair, exhale. Feet, plant them flat on the floor. Chair, feel my back against the chair. Exhale, let out one long, slow breath. That's it. I don't try to think my way out. I don't argue with the fear. I just run the drill. This is not about preventing the hijack. It's about changing your relationship to it. It's about knowing that you are not broken because your ancient alarm system is sensitive. You are human. And when the storm passes, and it always passes, the witness will return. The storyteller will quiet, and you will be left not with a defeated engine, but with a system that has just weathered a test, a system you now know how to calm. You are learning that you can be in the storm and still be the one who knows how to find the eye. Chapter 7. The Director's First Move, From Reaction to Responding. So far, we have become familiar with the inhabitants of our inner world, the quiet witness who sees, the chatty storyteller who narrates, the sensitive reactor who signals. We've seen how they can spin into loops of worry, criticism, and alarm. We've practiced stepping back, listening, and calming. But this raises a vital, practical question. If we are not our reactions, then how do we actually act in the world? If I am not my anger, what do I do with the injustice I feel? If I am not my anxiety, how do I move toward a frightening but important goal? If I am not my story of inadequacy, how do I begin a project I might fail? This is the moment we introduce the fourth and crucial member of the internal team, the director. The director is not a separate part like the others. It is a function. It is the capacity for choice that emerges when the witness, the storyteller, and the reactor are all seen and understood. It is the part of you that, from a place of awareness, can say, "Given all this, what will I do?" The director moves you from being a reactor to being a responder. A reaction is automatic, impulsive, infused with the story and sensation of the moment. It is the engine on autopilot. A response is conscious, considered, and aligned with your deeper intentions. It is you taking the wheel. Let's make this real. Imagine the reactor is sending a strong signal of frustration, a hot, tight feeling in your chest. The storyteller is spinning a tale of disrespect. They never listen to me. They're undermining me on purpose. From the fused state, the reactive move is clear. Lash out, send a sharp email, make a sarcastic comment. The action is a direct, unconscious discharge of the internal pressure. The director's move is entirely different. It begins by pausing, not to suppress, but to create space. In that space, the witness acknowledges the feeling and the story. I feel hot and tight. My mind is telling a story of intentional disrespect. Then the director asks the pivotal question, what do I want to cause here? Not what do I want to express, or what do I want them to feel, but what do I want to cause? What outcome? What kind of relationship? What kind of environment do I want to build with my next action? Do I want to cause more division and defensiveness? Then lashing out is the perfect tool. Do I want to cause clarity, resolution, and mutual respect? Then I need a different tool. From this clarified intention, the director can choose a response. It might be, I need to cool down first, I will take a walk. Or, I will request a conversation and use I feel statements to express my concern without accusation. The action is no longer about emptying the emotional cup. It's about building the world you want to live in, one intentional response at a time. This is where many motivational approaches fail. They shout, take action, be disciplined, but they skip the essential first step of the director, connecting action to a core value. Discipline fueled by self-loathing, like I'm disgusting, I must work out, is brittle and miserable. Discipline fueled by a value, like I value health and vitality, so I choose to move my body, is sustainable and empowering. The director's power comes from this alignment. Your values are your internal compass. They are not feelings which change or goals which end. They are enduring principles, like integrity, kindness, growth, contribution, adventure. When the director chooses an action aligned with a value, even a difficult action gains meaning. You're not just doing something hard, you are living your truth. So, your practice this chapter is to build the director's muscle with one simple tool, the value-based micro-choice. Throughout your day, you will be faced with tiny moments of potential reaction. The urge to scroll when you're bored, the impulse to snap at a family member when you're tired, the temptation to avoid a difficult sentence in a report. In that moment, pause just long enough to ask the directors two questions. What is my reactive autopilot trying to do? Usually, relieve discomfort, avoid pain, seek instant gratification. And what tiny action would align with a value I hold? Value, presence. Action, put the phone down and feel my breath for 30 seconds. Value, kindness. Action, take a breath and soften my tone. Value, excellence. Action, write one difficult sentence. Then, choose the valued action. It must be small, almost laughably small. The point is not the scale of the action, but the practice of intervening with choice. Every time you do this, you are doing three profound things. You are weakening the automatic chain from trigger to reaction. You are strengthening the neural pathway of the witness and the director. And you are building a life where your actions are not accidents, but affirmations of who you truly want to be. You are no longer a passenger. You are in the director's chair. And the next scene is yours to write.
Chapter 8. The Observer's Challenge. Why Focus Feels Like a Battle. You are now the director of your inner world. You have the script. You know the actors. You have a compass in your values. But the moment you try to focus that conscious, directing mind on a single task, reading a page, writing a proposal, listening deeply to someone, you may encounter a familiar rebellion. It starts subtly, an itch of boredom, a twinge of restlessness, a thought about something you need to buy, a memory of an awkward conversation from last week. Suddenly, you're 3 browser tabs deep into an article you don't need, your phone is in your hand, the original task feels a million miles away. Frustration rises. The storyteller condemns, you have no willpower, you're so lazy. You grit your teeth and try to force your attention back, like wrestling a steering wheel from a drunk driver. It's exhausting. It feels like a battle you were destined to lose. This experience is so universal that we believe focus is a muscle we must strain, a discipline we must force. We believe we are weak when it wanders. But what if we have the metaphor all wrong? Focus is not a muscle to clench. It is a spotlight to gently steer. To understand why, we need to meet a new background character in the engine, the scouter. The scouter is a function of your mind, deeply wired by evolution, whose sole job is to scan the environment for novelty, opportunity, and threat. It is the part of your awareness that is always looking for the next thing. Is that a new sound? A movement in the periphery? A change in the social atmosphere? Is there a potential reward? A potential danger? For most of human history, this was a brilliant survival strategy. The ancestor who was completely absorbed in making a tool and didn't notice the rustle in the grass didn't pass on their genes. The one whose attention was constantly lightly scanning the environment did. Your scouter is that ancestor's gift. It is why you can hear your name spoken across a noisy room. It is why a notification on your phone is irresistible. It is not a flaw. It is a feature designed for a world of immediate physical and social cues, not for a world of long-term, abstract projects on a glowing rectangle. When you sit down to focus, you are asking the scouter to stand down. You are telling this brilliant, ancient scanning system, ignore everything else. This one thing, this email, this spreadsheet, is the only thing that matters for the next hour. Unsurprisingly, it protests. It sends up flares of boredom, curiosity, and distraction. It's just doing its job. When you respond to these flares with frustration and force, you trigger the reactor, stress, and the storyteller, self-criticism. The internal battle begins, and focus becomes a war against your own biology. You cannot win that war. The alternative is to collaborate with the scouter. You do this not by fighting its nature, but by working with its rhythm. The spotlight of attention naturally drifts. That is its design. Your job as the director is not to lock it in place, but to notice it has drifted and kindly guide it back, again and again. This is not failure. This is the practice. Each gentle return is a rep, strengthening the connection between the director and the spotlight. The tool for this is planned interruption. Trying to focus for an undefined, endless period is torture to the scouter. It feels like a prison sentence. So you make a deal with it. You will give the spotlight fully to one task for a very short, non-threatening period. 25 minutes is often ideal. A kitchen timer works perfectly. During this time, you make a conscious pact. When a distraction arises, an itch, a thought, an urge, you simply note it. You say to the scouter, "I see that. Not now. We have a deal." You write it down on a distraction pad if you must, and you return the spotlight. Not with grit, but with a gentle, back to this. When the timer rings, you stop. You give the scouter its reward. 5 full minutes of planned, guilt-free distraction. Check the phone, stare out the window, get a glass of water. You are honoring its need to scan. This rhythm, short, intense focus followed by brief, free scanning, is how you align your modern goals with your ancient brain. You are not battling your nature, you are channeling it. Your practice this chapter is to conduct a focus audit. For one typical work or task session, do not try to focus. Instead, just observe. Have a notepad beside you. Every single time your spotlight drifts to a thought, a sound, an urge, make a tick mark on the pad. Don't judge it, don't follow it. Just note the fact of the drift in return. The goal is not to have 0 ticks. The goal is to collect data with the curiosity of a scientist. At the end of the session, look at the ticks. This is not your failure score. This is the measure of your scouter's incredible, persistent activity. It is the baseline rhythm of your own awareness. Now you know your opponent is not a demon of laziness, but a loyal, hyper-vigilant scout, and you can begin to make peace. You can begin to lead. Focus, then, becomes less a battle and more of a dance, a gentle, persistent dance of guiding a wandering light back home, moment by moment, with patience instead of force. This is how you build a mind that can both see the big picture and attend to the fine print, not by silencing the scout, but by giving it a post and a purpose. Chapter 9, Tool 1, The Noting Practice, Strengthening the Observer. We have met all the players, we understand the stage, we see how the play often runs off script into cycles of reaction, criticism, and distraction. Now we move from understanding to building. This begins with the most fundamental tool of all, the one that makes every other tool possible. It is the practice of strengthening the observer, the silent witness. Remember, the observer is not a thought or a feeling. It is the capacity for awareness itself. It is the quiet space in which thoughts and feelings arise. But like any capacity, it can be faint from neglect, or it can be sharpened into a reliable, steady presence. Imagine your mind as a busy railway station. Trains of thought are constantly arriving and departing. The worry express, the planning local, the memory freight, the fantasy bullet. For most of us, we are standing on the platform, and when the worry express pulls in, we get swept onto it without a second thought. We ride it for miles, completely identified with its destination, until it finally deposits us exhausted at anxiety terminal. The noting practice teaches you to stay on the platform. It is the simple, gentle act of labeling what is passing through the station of your mind. You don't get on the train, you don't try to stop it, you just read the destination board as it arrives. Here is how it works. Find a quiet moment, sit comfortably, close your eyes if you wish. For just 2 minutes, your only task is to notice what is happening in your field of awareness. And as you notice, you softly give it a one-word label in your mind. A thought arises, you note thinking. A sound from outside enters your awareness, you note hearing. A sensation of discomfort in your back, you note feeling. An emotion of impatience bubbles up, you note impatience. Your mind wanders into a memory, you note remembering. That's it. You were the platform manager, calmly calling out the arrivals. The magic of this is not in the label itself, but in the micro moment of separation the label creates. Between the stimulus, the thought, the sensation, and your identification with it, you insert a single word. That word is a wedge of space. It is the observer saying, I see this. This is an object in my awareness. It is not all of me. When you note worrying, you are no longer purely being worried. You are the one aware of the worrying. This may sound trivial. It is not. It is a revolutionary act of neural retraining. Every time you note, you are performing a rep for the prefrontal cortex, the seat of the observer. You are strengthening the brain's metacognition circuits, literally building the biological infrastructure for self-awareness. Start small, 2 minutes a day. Set a timer. You will fail instantly. Your mind will get on a train. The planning train is a frequent early favorite. This is not failure. This is the entire point of the practice. The moment you realize you've been lost in thought, that moment of, oh, I'm thinking, is the moment of victory. That is the observer waking up. Gently, without any self-criticism, you simply note thinking and return your attention to the next thing you notice. The breath, a sound, a sensation. Your goal is not a blank mind. Your goal is to catch yourself getting lost over and over again. Each catch is a success. It is like strengthening a muscle by lifting a weight. The lift is the act of returning from distraction. As this skill grows, you take it off the meditation cushion and into your life. This is where it becomes a superpower. You're in a tense meeting. A colleague says something that triggers you. Instead of instantly reacting, you feel the familiar heat. Internally, you note anger, tightening, story. That half-second of internal noting creates the space the director needs. Now you can choose a response, not enact a reaction. You're lying awake at night, anxious. Instead of spiraling, you note worrying, planning, sensation of tightness. You are no longer drowning in the anxiety.
The noting practice does not make difficult things disappear.
It changes your relationship to them. It turns overwhelming experiences into a series of knowable, fleeting phenomena. A thought, a feeling, a sensation that you can meet with curiosity instead of fear. Your practice this week is to build this foundational habit. Twice a day, for just 2 minutes, practice formal noting. Sit and label. Then, 3 times during your day, pick a routine activity. Washing your hands, walking to your car, waiting for the kettle to boil, and do it as a noting practice. Note the sensations, feeling water, temperature, rubbing. Note the sounds, note the thoughts that arise, and let them pass with a label. You are not trying to achieve a state of calm. You are practicing the art of knowing what is happening while it is happening. You are building your inner platform, and from that stable ground, you will find you can watch any train come and go without having to buy a ticket. Chapter 10. Tool 2. The Story Check. Questioning the narrator. The noting practice gave you a platform. It strengthened the observer. You can now see the trains of thought coming and going. But one train is louder, more convincing, and painted in urgent colors. It's the train of the storyteller, and it doesn't just want you to see it, it demands you board it and believe its entire narrative. They didn't reply because they're angry with you. You hesitated because you're incompetent. This feeling of dread means something terrible is about to happen. These are not just thoughts, they are full-blown stories with characters, motives, and catastrophic endings. They feel like documentaries of reality, not first drafts from a worried mind. Our next tool, the Story Check, is how you become a skilled fact-checker for this internal news channel. Its purpose is not to replace a negative story with a positive one. That's just substituting one fiction for another. Its purpose is to introduce cognitive flexibility, the ability to hold multiple possible interpretations of the same event. This is the antidote to the storyteller's absolutism. The Story Check is a simple 3-question protocol. You activate it when you notice a story arising that brings with it a sharp emotional charge, anxiety, shame, anger. Question 1. What is the story I'm telling? First, you must articulate it clearly. Pull it out of the fog of feeling into the light of words. Write it down if you can. The story I am telling is that my friend is ignoring my text because I said something wrong, and now they are pulling away from me. Question 2. What is the concrete, observable evidence? Here, you put on the hat of a scientist or a detective. You strip the story back to the raw, verifiable facts. You remove all interpretation, mind reading, and prediction. Fact: I sent a text 8 hours ago. Fact: I have not received a reply. That's it. Everything else, they're angry, I messed up, they're pulling away, is not evidence. It is the story layered on top of the evidence. Question 3. What are 3 other possible, plausible stories? This is the heart of the tool. You are not looking for rainbows and unicorns. You are looking for neutral or benign alternatives that fit the facts just as well. They are busy with work or family and haven't had a moment to reply thoughtfully. They saw the text in a distraction, meant to reply later, and genuinely forgot. My text was ambiguous, and they are thinking about how to respond. The goal is not to decide which story is true. The goal is to shatter the illusion that your first, emotionally charged story is the only truth. By generating alternatives, you accomplish something profound. You loosen the storyteller's grip on your reality. You are reminded that you are not perceiving reality directly. You are perceiving it through the lens of a narrative, and lenses can be changed. Let's walk through a powerful, real-life example. The spark. Your partner comes home from work quiet and goes straight to another room. The reactor signal. A hollow feeling in your stomach. The storyteller's first draft.
They're upset with me. I must have done something. The evening is ruined. There's going to be tension. Q. Anxiety, defensiveness. The story check. Story. Their quietness is directed at me and signals relationship trouble. Evidence. They are home. They are quieter than usual. They went to another room. 3 other stories. They had an exhausting, mentally draining day and need quiet to decompress. They're preoccupied with a problem at work they're trying to solve. They are feeling unwell and don't have the energy to engage. Merely considering these alternatives changes your entire physiological and emotional state. The hollow feeling might remain, but it is no longer glued to a narrative of personal blame and impending conflict. You have created space. From this space, the director can now choose a response aligned with a value, perhaps compassion or patience, instead of a reaction born of fear. Your practice this week is to conduct 3 formal story checks. Carry a small notebook or use your phone's notes app. When a strong, stressful story takes hold about a person, a situation, your own abilities, stop. Write down the story. Write down the bare facts or evidence. Brainstorm and write 3 other plausible stories. Do this with the curiosity of a writer brainstorming plot lines, not a defendant trying to win a case. Over time, this practice becomes internalized. The mere act of feeling that emotional charge will trigger a mental whisper. Ah, that's a story. I wonder what else could be true. This is cognitive flexibility in action. It is the hallmark of emotional resilience. You are no longer a prisoner of the first draft. You have become the editor with the power to review, revise, and choose the narrative that best serves your peace and your purpose. You are freeing yourself from the tyranny of a single scary story and opening up to the vast, complex, and ambiguous reality of life as it actually is. Chapter 11. Tool 3. The Sensation Surf. Riding the Reactor's Wave. You have learned to question the stories. You have built a stable platform of awareness. Yet sometimes, the reactor sends a signal so intense that it washes over everything. Logic fails. Stories dissolve. There is only the raw, physical tsunami of feeling. A crushing grief, a blinding rage, a terror that seems to have no edges. In these moments, all the tools of the mind can feel like paper walls in a hurricane. Trying to think your way out of it is futile. The experience is not happening in the realm of thought. It is happening in the kingdom of the body. For these times, we need a tool that speaks the body's language. We need a way to be with the storm without being destroyed by it. This tool is called sensation surfing. The core insight of this practice is radical. An emotion is not a solid, permanent state. It is a temporary, energetic event in the body. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It is a wave. Our suffering comes not from the wave itself, but from our resistance to it. We see the wave of anger rising, and we panic, we brace, we build mental walls against it. I shouldn't feel this. We try to outrun it with distraction or numb it with something else. In doing so, we trap the energy inside. The wave, denied its natural flow, becomes a stagnant pool of distress. Sensation surfing is the opposite of resistance. It is the practice of turning toward the sensation with deep curiosity and allowing it to move through you. You don't analyze it, you don't judge it, you don't try to change it, you surf it. Here is how you practice. Step 1. Drop the story. At the first sign of an overwhelming emotion, consciously drop the narrative. Stop following the thoughts about why you feel this way or what it means. This is not about the why right now. This is about the what. What is happening in the physical container of your body? Step 2. Locate the sensation. Ask, where do I feel this most strongly? Don't answer with an emotion label, in my heart. Answer with a body part and a sensory description. I feel a hot pressing knot right below my sternum. I feel a vibrating, fluttering energy in the center of my chest. I feel a heavy, cold stone in the pit of my stomach. Your attention is now a gentle spotlight illuminating the physical epicenter of the feeling. Step 3. Describe the texture. Now get even more curious, as if you're a geologist examining a strange new mineral. Is it hot or cold? Is it sharp or dull? Is it vibrating or still? Does it have a shape, a border? Does it pulse or is it constant? This step moves you from being overwhelmed by the sensation to being intimately acquainted with it. You are mapping the wave. Step 4. Breathe into and around it. On your next inhale, imagine your breath flowing directly into and around the space.
You uncouple the physical signal from the catastrophic story. The body completes its cycle, and the mind is left without a disaster to narrate. You often discover the true message. The rage, when surfed, might reveal itself as profound hurt. The anxiety might reveal itself as excited anticipation. You receive the telegram directly, without the storyteller's mistranslation. Your practice this week is to choose one manageable emotion, not a full-blown panic attack, but a moment of sharp frustration, a flush of shame, a wave of sadness. When it arises, pause, say to yourself, "This is a wave. I will surf it." Locate it, describe it, breathe into it, watch it change. Remember, you are not seeking release, you are seeking understanding. You are learning the most important lesson of emotional life. You are not your feelings. You are the vast, compassionate space that can hold them, learn from them, and watch them pass. And with each wave you surf, you become less afraid of the ocean. Chapter 12. Tool 4. The Values Compass, Directing Your Action. We have gathered a powerful toolkit. We can note our thoughts, check our stories, and surf our sensations. We have moved from being lost in the storm to being able to stand in it, map it, and understand its nature. But a crucial question remains. Now what? Awareness alone is not the end goal. It is the prerequisite for something more meaningful, a life of intention, a life where your actions are not just reactions to internal and external weather, but are chosen directions, steps on a path you have consciously set. This is the domain of the final and perhaps most important tool, the values compass. A value is not a goal. A goal is a destination you reach and check off. Get the promotion, run the marathon, lose 20 pounds. A value is a direction you walk in forever. It is a quality of being you want to bring to your life, regardless of the outcome. Integrity is a value. Curiosity is a value. Connection, courage, compassion, contribution, growth, these are values. Goals are what you want to get or achieve. Values are how you want to behave on the journey. They are your deepest, truest North Stars. Why does this distinction matter so much? Because when you link your actions to goals, you are tethered to results you cannot fully control. You fail the goal, and your reason for action collapses. This is a brittle, dispiriting way to live. When you link your actions to values, you are tethered to a quality you can embody right now, in this very moment, regardless of the outcome. Your sense of meaning and integrity becomes internal, stable, and under your control. The reactor feels fear about a difficult conversation. The storyteller spins tales of rejection. The old reactive you might avoid the conversation to quell the fear. Goal, feel safe. But the director, consulting the values compass, asks a different question. What would a person who values courage and authenticity do right now? The valued action is clear. Have the conversation. Not because you're guaranteed a good result, but because to be courageous and authentic, you must act courageously and authentically. The action itself becomes the point. It is its own reward, fulfilling you at the level of your character. This is how you build a life that feels strong from the inside out.
Not a life of perfect outcomes, but a life of unwavering integrity. Your first task is to find your true north. Take a quiet hour. Ask yourself, deep down, what qualities do I most want to embody? What principles do I want to guide my ship, even in the roughest seas? List them. Not what you should value, but what your most honest, quiet self whispers is true. Aim for 3 to 5 core values. Now, we connect this compass to your daily life with a simple, powerful practice: valued microactions. Each day, identify one small, specific action you can take that is a direct expression of a core value. It must be so small that failure is almost impossible. If you value health, your microaction is not "get fit." It is "I will walk for 10 minutes today." If you value connection, it is not "be a better friend." It is "I will send one thoughtful text to someone I care about." If you value growth, it is not "master a new skill." It is "I will read 5 pages of a book on a new topic." If you value presence, it is not "be more mindful." It is "I will put my phone away completely during one meal today." The staggering power of this practice lies in its cumulative effect. Every completed microaction is a vote for your new identity. It is a neural pathway carved a little deeper, proving to yourself, "I am someone who follows through on what matters." It also transforms drudgery. Cleaning the kitchen is no longer a chore, it's an act of care for your space and those who share it. A difficult work task is no longer just stressful, it's an opportunity to enact excellence or diligence. When you face a moment of procrastination, overwhelm, or conflict, you now have a decision-making protocol that bypasses the chaotic committee of Reactor and Storyteller. Pause. Activate the observer. Ask, in this moment, what is one of my core values? Choose, what is the smallest, clearest action I can take right now that aligns with that value? Your practice this week is twofold. First, solidify your 3 to 5 core values. Write them down, place them where you will see them. Second, each morning, choose one value in one corresponding microaction for the day. Write it down, and before bed, acknowledge its completion. You are no longer adrift, pushed by the winds of feeling and circumstance. You have a compass. You have a map made of your own deepest truths, and each small, valued step you take is you charting your course home to yourself. Chapter 13. In Conflict, Hearing the Other Person's Engine. Up to now, our work has been internal. We've explored the landscape of a single mind, your own. We've learned to calm its storms and steer its course. But you do not live in a vacuum. You live in a world of other people, each with their own complex, humming internal engine, and these engines inevitably collide. A partner says something that feels like a dismissal. A colleague takes credit for your idea. A friend cancels plans at the last minute, again. In these moments, your own engine roars to life. The reactor sends jets of heat. The storyteller scripts a damning narrative. They're so selfish. They don't respect me. This is intentional. The old reactive you is poised to launch a counterattack or retreat into cold silence. This is where our internal work faces its ultimate test. Can you apply this understanding not just to yourself, but to the mysterious, frustrating person in front of you? The radical shift we propose is this. See the conflict not as a battle between two people, but as a clash between two internal engines, each stuck in their own feedback loop. Your storyteller is narrating their actions based on your fears and history, but their actions are the output of their internal machinery, driven by their reactor, their storyteller, operating from their past wounds and present fears. They are not a villain in your story. They are the protagonist in their own, one who likely feels just as justified, hurt, and misunderstood as you. Our tool for navigating this is engine recognition. It is the practice of temporarily shifting your focus from your own intense reactions to a curious inquiry into theirs. It requires the most courageous use of the witness you have ever attempted. Step 1. Secure your own engine first. You cannot analyze another's machinery while yours is redlining. When the conflict spark ignites, your first and most vital move is internal. Pause. Breathe. Note the sensations. Heat. Tightness. Check the story. This is an attack. This isn't about suppressing your feeling. It's about creating enough space so you are not drowning in it. You must put your own oxygen mask on first. Step 2. Shift from accusation to curiosity. From that sliver of space, ask yourself one of the most powerful questions in human relating. What must their storyteller be telling them right now for this to make sense as a reasonable action? Don't answer with your storyteller's voice. They think I'm an idiot. Answer with genuine, imaginative empathy. Generate plausible internal narratives for them. They must be feeling incredibly defensive and scared of being seen as wrong. Their storyteller is probably telling them they need to fight for recognition where they'll be overlooked. Their reactor might be in a state of overwhelm, and their action is a frantic attempt to create control. When you respond, you now have a choice. You can speak to the surface-level behavior, which will trigger their defensiveness, or you can speak to the underlying engine signal you've hypothesized. Instead of, "You always interrupt me," accusation to persona, try, "It seems like this topic is really important to you, and you have a lot to say about it." Acknowledgement of their engine's intensity. Instead of, "That was really inconsiderate," judgment of output.
Not, "You made me feel small," blame. But, "When I get interrupted, my storyteller jumps to, 'My ideas don't matter,' and I feel a real sinking sensation. I shut down." You are not accusing them of causing your feeling. You are reporting the causal chain inside your own system. This is disarming, honest, and nonviolent. Your practice this week is observational. Choose one low-stakes, minor conflict or friction you observe, in person, on TV, in a book. Your task is not to judge who is right. Your task is to practice engine recognition. For each person, hypothesize. What spark might have triggered them? What might their reactor be feeling? What story might their storyteller be telling? Watch how their output, words or actions, makes perfect, tragic sense as a result of that internal process. You are training in empathy of the most practical kind. You are learning that everyone is fighting a hard battle you know nothing about. Their engine is just as complex and fragile as yours. When you bring this understanding into your next real conflict, something transformative happens. The fight stops being you versus them. It becomes both of you versus the problem of two distressed engines miscommunicating. And from that alliance, true resolution, not just victory, can finally be born. Chapter 14. At Work, From Overwhelm to Engaged Flow. The modern world of work is a masterclass in overloading the human engine. It is a constant stream of sparks, pinging notifications, looming deadlines, ambiguous feedback, back-to-back meetings. Your reactor is in a state of low-grade, persistent alarm. Your storyteller is a relentless project manager spinning tales of inadequacy and future failure. You're falling behind. You're not good enough to handle this. They'll find out you're a fraud. The result is a familiar, soul-crushing state, overwhelm. It's not just having too much to do, it's the feeling that the demands have fused into a solid, immovable wall. Your director freezes, action becomes impossible. You scroll, you reorganize lists, you do busy work, anything to avoid the terrifying cliff face of the actual work. The traditional broken solution is time management. It tries to force the chaotic external world into neat little boxes on a calendar. But this fails because it doesn't address the internal chaos, the hijacked engine. Our approach is different. We don't start with the calendar. We start with the sensation of overwhelm itself. Overwhelm is not an intellectual state. It is a physical and emotional one. It's a specific cocktail of reactor signals, a racing heart, shallow breath, tight shoulders, a buzzing brain, and a feeling of dizziness or fog. Coupled with the storyteller's catastrophic narrative, it creates a paralyzing feedback loop. Step 1. Name and tame the beast. When you feel that wave of "I can't," pause. Don't look at your to-do list. Look inward. Note, this is the sensation of overwhelm. I feel a buzzing in my head, tightness in my chest. My storyteller is saying, it's all too much. Just this act of naming separates you from the fusion. You are not the overwhelm. You are experiencing it. Step 2. The single next physical action. Overwhelm makes you see the entire mountain. The director cannot climb a mountain. It can only take a single step. So you must shrink the universe down to one tiny, physical, actionable step. Not finish the report. That's the mountain. Ask, what is the very next, smallest physical action I can take? Open the document. Write the subject line of the email. Gather the 3 files I need. Make it so laughably small that resistance is pointless. The goal is not progress. The goal is to break the frozen state by creating movement. Action, no matter how tiny, sends a signal to the reactor. We are moving. The panic can stand down. Step 3. Create engine-friendly containers. Remember the scouter from Chapter 8, the part of your mind that craves novelty and rebels against endless focus? Work is its torture chamber. The solution is the planned deal you make with it. Use a timer. Set it for 25 minutes. During that time, your only job is that one tiny action. You are not writing the whole chapter. You are writing one paragraph. When the distraction itch arises, you note it, itching to check news, and gently return. When the timer rings, you stop. You must stop. You give the scouter its reward. 5 minutes of guilt-free scanning, stretching, getting water. This honors your biology. It turns the infinite workday into a series of sustainable sprints. This is the famous Pomodoro technique, but now you understand why it works. It collaborates with your engine, instead of fighting it. Step 4. Redefine productivity. The old definition of productivity is output per hour. It's industrial. It turns you into a machine, which you are not. The new, engine-based definition of productivity is the sustainable alignment of focused attention with valued action. Did you have one 25-minute period of focused attention on a task that aligns with your value of excellence or contribution? That is a productive period. It doesn't matter if you solved the whole problem. You engaged your director, you respected your scouter, and you moved a valued stone. This redefinition protects you from the storyteller's criticism when progress feels slow. Step 5. The end-of-day engine shutdown. One of the greatest sources of work anxiety is the inability to stop. The engine is left idling all night because there is no clear shutdown ritual. Create one. Spend 5 minutes at the end of your work time. Look at what you did accomplish, the valued micro-actions. Write down the 1 to 3 most important next physical actions for tomorrow. Then say to yourself, consciously, the work engine is now in standby mode. My attention is now released. This symbolic act helps the reactor and storyteller disengage. Your practice this week is to implement the single next action protocol. For your most dreaded task, don't try to do it. Just identify the very first, tiny physical action. Then set a timer for 10 minutes and do only that. When the timer rings, you are free. You will almost always find that starting was the only true barrier. The engine, once in motion, tends to stay in motion. Work does not have to be a war against your own nature. It can be the thoughtful application of your internal mechanics to the external world. You move from being an overwhelmed reactor to an engaged operator, finding a state of flow not by accident, but the intelligent, compassionate design of your own mind. Chapter 15. With the past, maintenance, not demolition. Our journey has equipped us for the present moment, to navigate storms, to steer through conflict, to focus amid chaos. But there is a ghost in the machine, a part of the engine that isn't content with the present spark. It reaches backwards, grabbing old sparks and feeding them into the current system. This is the past, not as memory, but a living narrative that actively shapes your now.
A critical comment from a parent 20 years ago, echoed today by your inner editor. A betrayal from a past relationship, coloring your storyteller's interpretation of a new partner's harmless act. A professional failure that makes your reactor clench at the very thought of a similar challenge. The past, when it lives this way, is not history. It is a perpetual spark generator. It hijacks the present. The conventional self-help approach is to try and demolish the past, to get over it, to forgive and forget, to release it. This often feels like trying to dismantle a supporting wall while you're still living in the house. It creates more rubble. It makes you feel weak for not being able to do it. Our approach is gentler, wiser, and more effective. We don't demolish, we perform narrative maintenance. The goal is not to erase the memory. The goal is to change your relationship to that memory, to update the story your mind tells about that past event, and in doing so, change the signal it sends into the present. Here is the 3-step maintenance protocol. Step 1. Identify a recurring ghost. Think of a past event, a failure, a hurt, a loss that still has an emotional charge. When you remember it, you feel a current of shame, anger, or sadness. This is your ghost. Write down the core story you've always told about it. That event proves I am fundamentally unlovable. That failure shows I don't have what it takes. That was the moment my life went off the rails. Step 2. Bring in the compassionate witness. Close your eyes. Revisit the memory, not to relive it, but to observe it from the seat of your present-day witness. See your past self there, in that moment of pain or struggle. See them with the kindness you would show a friend. Now, ask this crucial question. Knowing what I know now about the human engine, about reactors, storytellers, and the universal human struggle, what is a more compassionate, more accurate story about what happened? This is not about making excuses, it's about adding context, complexity, and humanity. The old story, I failed because I was lazy and stupid. The maintained story, I was a younger person with an underdeveloped director and a hypercritical editor. I was overwhelmed, operating from fear, and I lacked the tools I have now. I did the best I could with the internal machinery I had at the time. Step 3. Speak to the ghost. From your present-day self, the one who understands the engine, speak directly to that past version of you. You can write this.
I see you there. I see how scared you were. I see how hard you were trying. You were navigating without a map. The story you told yourself about this, that you were a failure, was just your frightened storyteller trying to make sense of the pain. It wasn't the whole truth. The truth is, you survived it. You learned from it, and it brought you here, to a place of understanding. I integrate this experience now, not as a wound, but as a source of wisdom. I release you from the burden of that old story. This process of recontextualization is a neurological event. You are literally forging new neural pathways around an old memory. You are not deleting the file, you are saving a new annotated version alongside it. Over time, when the memory is triggered, the maintained story, the one with compassion and context, becomes the louder, more accessible file. Your practice this week is to perform maintenance on one ghost. Choose one past event that still carries a sting. Write down the old, painful core story. Then, from your seat as the wise, present-day mechanic of your own mind, write the new, compassionate maintenance story. Read this new story aloud to yourself for 3 days. You are not fighting your past, you are updating its software. You are teaching your engine that the past is a source of data, not a source of perpetual spark. It is a chapter in your manual, not a hand on your steering wheel. When you do this, you reclaim enormous energy previously spent on haunting yourself. That energy becomes available to your director for building the present you actually want to live in. The past becomes a reference library, not a prison cell, and you become its author, not its inmate. Chapter 16. The Lifelong Tune-Up. Your Evolving Story. We have reached the final chapter, but this is not an end. There is no point of arrival where the engine is perfected, the road is forever smooth, and the internal weather is permanently clear. If you have been waiting for that, I must gently, honestly tell you, it does not exist. That is not the goal. That was never the goal. The goal, the beautiful lifelong practice, is the tune-up. It is the gentle, ongoing act of listening to the hum of your own machinery, noticing when it sputters, and knowing exactly which tool to reach for. Not to make it run silently, but to help it run true. Let's revisit our cast one final time, not as problems to be solved, but as essential parts of your wholeness. The observer is your foundation. It is the quiet, unwavering ground of your being. Your practice is to return to it moment by moment, not as a meditation technique, but as a homecoming. The storyteller is not your enemy. It is a relentless, creative meaning maker. Your job is not to silence it, but to edit its drafts with kindness and curiosity, to thank it for its vivid imagination, and to remember you are not the script. The reactor is not a flaw. It is your exquisite, ancient guidance system. Your work is to listen to its somatic language, to surf its waves with courage, and to decode its urgent telegrams into useful data. The director is not a tyrant of discipline. It is the graceful function of choice that emerges when the others are heard. It is you, aligning your smallest actions with your deepest values, building a life of integrity from the inside out. This is not a linear process. You will not graduate from the reactor to live forever in the observer. You will cycle through them all, day by day, hour by hour. Some days the storyteller will spin an epic tale of woe, and you will believe every word for a full hour before you remember you have tools. That is not failure. That is the practice. The measure of your progress is not the absence of difficult states. It is the shortening of the fuse. It is the gap between the spark and the moment the witness comes online. It is the speed with which you move from fusion with a story to curiosity about it. It is the reduction in time between feeling hijacked by an emotion and beginning to surf its sensation. The fuse gets shorter, the space gets wider, the return to choice gets quicker. This is a journey without a destination. It is the journey of a lifetime. You are not fixing yourself to become someone else. You are getting to know yourself intimately and compassionately so you can live as who you already are, with less friction, more grace, and a profound sense of agency. So, what now? You take this manual, this understanding of your inner mechanics, and you live your life. You go to work, you fall in love, you face loss, you pursue dreams, and in it all, you listen. When you feel the old familiar tightening, you will hear a whisper, sensation, story. When you are lost in a storm of feeling, a deeper part of you will remember, this is a wave, I can surf. When you stand at a crossroads confused, you will feel for your internal compass. What value wants to be lived here? This knowing becomes integrated. It becomes you. You will forget, often, and then you will remember again. Each remembering is a victory. This is not about winning a war against your humanity. It is about making peace with its glorious, messy, perfect complexity. You are not a machine to be optimized. You are a conscious being learning to operate the miraculous, sensitive instrument of your own life. So, close this book, not with a sense of finishing, but with a sense of beginning. Your story is not over. It is being written moment by the choices you make from that space of gentle awareness. You are the author, the editor, the protagonist, and the wise reader, all at once. The tune-up is lifelong. The journey is the destination. And you now are equipped for the ride. Go well.